invasive species and whatever was happening, and to continue to meet and continue to do the work, to make sure to stay open and to continue to push. I know I'm going to miss Steve, and I know the Big Sur community is going to miss Steve. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matt. I would just add that not only did all the things that you said ring true, but the duration of them. He's been doing this forever. I mean, I remember starting to be active in the 1990s, and he was active at that time, sort of as a mentor. It's just a reminder that it isn't over when your issue gets a success, or it isn't over when you lose something. It goes on forever. So, thank you. Anyone else want to say anything about items that are not on the agenda? Nothing? Nothing? Okay, that being the case, I put this right here. Maybe we should put it in his chair. But I hope that many of you will join me in attending his honor what he brought to us. And I have to say, it's a little hard for many of us. So if it gets a little emotional, we'll try not, but it's hard. So the next item on our agenda will be the approval of the minutes, for which we are extremely grateful. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to the minute? Anybody think they're okay and want to say so by the form of a motion?
So moved.
Dan, and Dan, seconded by Rick, that we approve the minutes of our last meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Sarah, you can raise your hand and I'll count that, or nod your head. Thank you. And any opposed? No. Any abstentions? None. So the minutes are approved. So now we're going to go to, this is a meeting full of substance, and John has brought a fleet of experts to back him up with some fine presentations. The first of which is about the bridges and bridge rails. John and company.
Was there anyone online wanted to make comments?
I didn't. Thank you, Dan. Did anyone online want to make any comments? Because I skipped that.
I had heard essence to that.
I don't see anybody online with their hands up or nodding their head or anything of that sort. So I'm going to assume not, but please feel free to raise your hand if you subsequently do have something to say. Sorry, Sarah, you have to just keep remembering. Hi, Cats.
Sorry, I was trying to bring the agenda back up.
Okay, so now we're going to go back and turn it over to John and his associates. John.
Thank you. Great to see everyone. And of course, think about and sad of the circumstances with Steve. I always, he always was one to bring up the invasive species, but I talked about other things too, flooding on the coast. And I think to Matt's point, he did always like to give credit where credit is due. And that's a skill that's not often carried by many people. So I appreciate that. But today I just wanted to introduce a brief topic, and with me, my friends and guests, Jason Wilkinson is our Deputy District Director of our Environmental Division. So that encompasses all the things that relate to clearing and studying, and biologists and archaeologists, everything related to projects that need to go through the CEQA and NEPA process. Jason's in charge of that. And then Scott Smith is our Office Chief of Environmental, specifically for capital type projects. In a more general sense, but that encompasses a lot more than just general, but you might say our generalists, those who cover all things related to getting a CEQA document cleared and work closely with the Coastal Commission on the coastal development permits. And then Aaron Wolfram is a project manager, and he actually has many of the projects along the Big Sur coast. And so one of them project Aaron has is the historic bridge rail replacement projects. And so we just wanted to talk a little briefly and introduce the smallest bit of history to say that since in the last few years, we were not successful in obtaining a coastal development permit for replacing some of the historic bridge rails along the coast. We since then have taken opportunity to by reflection and by input from the community and by input from this group and Bismack and others of, well, we obviously still need to replace these bridge rails. So what might be prudent next steps? Where do we go from here? And so subsequent to that, and when I'll get into more details and just general roundtable, but subsequent to that, we have been able to do engineering and traffic speed zone surveys through the Bixby, actually from Coast Road down to Garrapatta. And I'll get more details later, but we're gonna be lowering the speed limits through this vicinity. From 55 to either 40 or 45. And so that kind of opened an opportunity. It was engineering traffic speed zone surveys or something that allow a regulatory sign to be posted black and white. It makes it enforceable so that I think it is written, it will stand up in courts, but it has to be backed by a speed zone survey to show what actually are drivers driving to make it a legal speed limit. And so with that study nearly complete, there's some administrative things still yet to do, working through with the county. It kind of opened up the opportunity to say, all right, now that we have a lower speed limit, maybe there are other bridge rail types or options that are out there. So the team has just started looking into it and has come into one potential option. If you remember the past, we used to call something the 86H. This is this other bridge rail that we've come into to look at potentially has another number and letter. It's what we call the 511. And it is one that has, good, Gabe brought it up for us. I didn't know if we we're gonna be able to do this or not. So it's one that, if you take a look, the 86H, because of a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit was required because it had, it was basically bulkier to absorb impact of a higher speed vehicle. Now with the speed limits, being studied and shown and proven to be lower, then it gives us more options for other bridge rail types, designed in mind with historic features and nature, as a potential. So we have gotten as far as being able to put two pictures on a slide. This is the very beginning, of opportunities and potential. But we felt like it was a good time, since we had this meeting, since there is conversation about bridge rails that happen in this room, to just share like this is where we are at the moment. We've come across this new barrier type. It it definitely fits in the character of the historic rail. It has a lot, you'll see it has taller openings. You'll note, and just to be transparent, the widths are just shy of 6 inches. They are not 10 inches like the current bridge rail. There isn't a bridge rail out there that would meet any standard that would be allowed. So we will have to have narrower openings, but they are taller. And there is opportunity going forward, with discussions from groups like this or others about maybe some aesthetic design type treatments to customize for each bridge. Each bridge will be examined on its own and, kind of brought to fruition on its own merit. So we just wanted to bring this, to this group for a conversation. That's kind of where we are at this point, conversation. This is not something we are in any way in a place to just pop right down. But we wanted to just share that this is since the time we've talked before about bridge rails and not able to do the other one, but now our speed limits have lowered, so the thresholds have lowered as well. So just wanted to talk, maybe I'll offer a chance for Aaron to maybe if there's anything I've missed. We just kind of want to introduce this to the group.
Yeah, no, thanks, John. I think you covered it pretty well. You can kind of take a note that the 86H was designed as what they call a test level 4 railing, which is designed for high speed highways, 45 mile anything over 45 miles per hour. The 511H is a test level 2 railing. It was already crash tested in Texas, so it does not need crash testing to be approved. Our bridge rail folks are looking at, they've already approved the Texas developed what we will now call the 512H, the test level 4. And we're expecting this 511H to be approved for use in California before the end of this year.
So just have a few images I want to share and kind of as an update of what we've been kind of working on and looking into. Scott.
Yeah, I thought it might be beneficial because some people see different things in different images, just to point out kind of what is. Can we go back to the other slide? Thank you. So again, this was the old rail that we had talked about that was rejected. And some of the features that were called out as being objectionable was a very tall curb. It was a very bulky curb, and it also had a very bulky top rail on it. And if you notice, this is the one we're proposing, or that's it's under consideration, I should say. It's got a much shorter curb to it. much lighter handrail, and that's what gives you the ability to have those larger windows. And then the other thing I think is important to point out is this is the side profile. So as you're approaching the bridge, as you're looking along the rail, the 511H has a much narrower rail. This is obviously a much thicker structure, and this is a top-down view. These are both top-down views, so you can see the 86H was very, very, very thick, very heavy, and this is much thinner, lighter. We think more appropriate for the area as far as what we've heard from the community and the feedback we've received. So I think we just, as a group, we just want to say, took heart in the fact that we heard a lot of things from the community. And, one was we want to consider what's happening in the area. That, 55 miles an hour through the entire area isn't the appropriate speed limit, so maybe something smaller. So we went out and did the studies, came back, found out the speed limit actually being driven in that area is lower. It's a 45 mile an hour speed limit. So we can bring that speed limit down and consider other things that might be better. And Martha, you and I talked, and I said, doesn't get all the way to where we want to be or where we heard we want to be, but I think it does solve a lot of some of the concerns that were expressed. So anyway, it's just for consideration. And the other thing too, is we didn't want to come with something that was decided upon. That was something we heard last time that, we brought you the decision, said, hey, we made the decision. You like it? That was the feedback we got at least. And this is much earlier in the process, saying, this isn't all the way approved yet. Still steps we need to take, but it's something we're thinking. So
you're confident that approval will happen soon? And
I should say that the approval doesn't mean we're approving it to be used here. It's just a rail that's available to the state of California to be used if we want it.
yeah, so my next question is, do you anticipate there being other potentially acceptable options to the 511 or 512 in this case?
Well, there are many bridge rail options, but we're sifting it down to, what fits in the coast Highway 1,
And
what's consistent with the Coast Highway Management Plan, what meets some of the needs of things we've heard, gotten feedback on. So there's lots of bridge rails, but and just looking around to see what other things to do with the benefit of having speed limit introduced, this became something we were able to figure out potentially.
And if I remember correctly, that these rails are slightly taller than the existing bridge rails.
If you go to the next slide, kind of another side. So I explained this right, Aaron. The black outline on the far left is the existing.
So this is comparing the 86H, which was the previous proposal, to the 511H. The 511H, I believe, is like ever so slightly taller than the existing rail. It matches approximately at the strong, what we were calling the strong post, and whatever that set feature was near the there's those breakup points on the rail, and it's approximately the same height as that. So I think it's about an inch or maybe a little less than an inch taller.
86H was the same height as the existing rail.
I'm just gonna say thank you for all the work. I really appreciate it, and to remind everyone that this is not the beginning of a discussion, but it's continuation of a very long process that we've been going through to try to reach a good solution. And I just can't appreciate Caltrans's efforts enough to look outside of the original profile and try to find something that will be more acceptable. And also kudos on bringing us the thoughts before they're gelled. I know that's scary for agencies, and I do want to call out that I hope we can take it in the spirit intended and work together to find something that really fits. My only other comment is I will continue to advocate that while you say each bridge needs to be considered individually, they're set. All the bridges on the highway are part of the overall experience, and that needs to be a very strong factor in whatever we do, and should be extended, in my view, beyond the identified historic arch bridges to the entire Caltrans right of way and all of the things that we do. So that's just a comment based on the understanding that everything has its own individual needs, but the overall experience is such an iconic and important piece. It's kind of what this organization's about. Yes, Tom?
The only thing I was gonna add, when we do talk about that, I think the idea is that the build would be 511 inch for all the bridges. But there are certain aspects of that rail that can be modified for safety.
I'm here thinking of the example, the visual impact of the emergency repairs at Rocky Creek. And so we have the idea of having a slate of appropriate emergency treatments prepared so that we don't end up with that kind of discontinuous jarring visual impact. Would be very important to me as well. I mean, I don't know about others, but I find that to be less than desirable.
So I'm speaking as a former engineer, I appreciate all the trade-offs you have to make when you do a design. Because I went through that in my career. I think you've done a good job. You've taken input from people here that live here, taken that into consideration. You're still taking a very flexible stance. I kind of like that 511 design, only because so many bridges in California date back to the WPA days when they used kind of an Art Deco theme. You got a lot closer to that theme with that 511, I think, my personal opinion. So, yeah, thank you for your flexibility, and you're working with us to get this done, but it's looking a lot better.
And just to be clear, the speed limit being lowered is happening anyway. These are not tied together.
We were, the CHB, I can get into some of the details of the roundtable, but in working with the CHB, they, there was lots of things at play. Like some of the activities around the bridges, lowering the speed limits was an overall desire that we had, and the CHB specifically reached out to us and asked us to look into it. And so we did the surveys and found the speed limits, so that opened the opportunity
That began this.
for something like this.
Did that extend as far as Silverados?
So I can go to my note on that.
We do have a bridge above Garapata as well, two bridges above
So
Garapata.
essentially, it's Coast Road to the north, it's Coast Road to Garapata, essentially.
So we'll need to ask that we fold in a consideration of everything up to the north end of Malpaso, I would think at least, if not. Because Soberanes is a troubled area.
Yeah.
And we do have other bridges.
So just to cover it, so it's south of Coast Road to just north of Rocky Creek. Speed limits will be going from 55 to 40 miles an hour. And then from that north of Rocky Creek to Garapata, the decrease, and again, it's not officially yet, because we still have to go through some processes. The decrease will go from 55 to 45. To reflect these, to make it enforceable, and that will also in turn, well, I guess the point to make on that as well is, that there's some good that's gonna come from that. While we will be adding and exchanging some speed limit signs, we will also then be removing some of the curb warning signs that exist. So it'll end up being a net zero. So, if a curb warning sign is warning someone to go 45, well, now speed limit's 45, you don't need that sign anymore. So we've definitely, over the last few years, had an eye on if there's any other actions could merit the removal of a sign. That's been everyone's mindset, to be able to do that, so. Pretty much it.
Really kind of exciting to start seeing us be able to work together more collaboratively. I just gotta say,
We have a hand up on Zoom too.
I assume so. I'm just checking the room first and don't see anybody else. So let's go to Zoom. Who's the Zoomer?
Bruce Merchant.
Oh, Bruce. Hi, Bruce. Where
Hi
are you?
there. I just wanted to ask what the time is for the lowered speed limits that you just discussed.
So at this point, we have a study that's complete. We have concurrence with the California Highway Patrol, and right now we're working with Monterey County. There's a step in the process in the law. We have to give the county an opportunity to hold a public hearing on the matter. So we're still waiting to hear back on that. So if the county declines the desire to have a public meeting, then things will go a little sooner. But if they accept a public meeting, then it would take whatever weeks or months to be able to have that and hold that. But we're looking forward to implement as soon as we can.
And thank you very much.
Follow that up. This will also be something that comes up at the BSBO, I assume.
We'll bring it up as an
So
information item.
people will know.
Yeah.
That's certainly the good information spreading.
And do you want that at the October BSMAC?
We don't necessarily need an agenda item for that, we can cover that in our district director's report.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Would anybody else in here have more to say? I'm excited. I would ask, going forward. You've heard from, I think everybody in the room has heard from me numerous times about the dynamic impact of the railing. So if there's a way to simulate what it looks like when you're driving by it at 40 miles an hour. That would be really helpful, because that's a feature that doesn't show up really well on a drawing. It's hard to detect, and so that would be exciting to see, and I hope with this design, significantly different in terms of what the view looks like through those railings. And remembering, of course, that protected views are not just of the water in this area, they're everywhere. So that's my own, right?
I have a housekeeping.
A housekeeping issue?
Katie, is Lindsay Stevens online yet? From Monterey, she's having trouble getting on.
I don't see her
Yeah, I
on.
just forwarded the link you sent us to her,
Yeah.
so hopefully that will work.
Just
Yes,
to,
Scott.
to address your comment about the visual sims, we were already working on this sims, and I saw everything a note on the dynamic. I think we have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
And so we'll,
I would expect you to, because I think the San Jose Mercury News does, and you guys gotta be better off than that. Right, so?
Thank you all so much for the work you're doing. I'm also assuming when you're gonna be producing visuals that you will have visual comparisons of the whole bridge rails, as they currently. Well,
you still have this, right?
I one thing to add, kind of, you were talking about as you drive through the visual look, one of the benefits of the 511H as it's shown there is that the balusters kind of have chamfers that curve around. So it actually has the same viewing distance for about a 30-degree. As you look through that window, it will be approximately 5.5 inches wide for about 30 degrees as you look through the window. So it should help to kind of mitigate that narrower opening.
It looks like a whole lot lighter, and like it will be more in keeping with the bridge, the effect of the overall bridge when you look at it, which is important to people. The dynamic piece has to do with whether it disappears under speed, of course, but preserving the area.
Yeah.
Gotta be good, man.
Real progress.
It's real progress, and-
Yeah.
but the thickness of it is really exciting to me.
Yeah.
That's more in keeping with what the railings are now, and
And
also they might help with the bicycles. So.
we did mention this before, but this rail, this specific 511 was designed with this, historic aspect to it. So I know there's all kinds of bridge designs, but this one was specifically designed to meet historic aspects of the corridor.
So that review
Yeah,
should
take care of
be
it. Yeah.
successful. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the room? Anybody online?
No hands raised online.
Golly, guys, thank you so much. All right. I mean, I'm excited, as you would imagine.
I think that's what got you here. I still feel like that's what got you here. The tease.
No, what got me here today was, a variety, of things. We won't go into that, not of course. But it's nice here, and I like these people, and I guess bottom line, I feel I could be more useful here than where I was gonna go before, in this particular moment. So back to John, the exciting post-highway management plan update. What is the story, dude?
So my main message today is our next Byways meeting on November 19th. We hope to dedicate as much time as possible that meeting to a larger discussion with much of the community as possible about the Coast Highway Management Plan update. So the CHMP, as we know, 2004, over 20 years of productive and useful life. It's still, I'd like to say, I feel like it's still as pertinent as it ever was the day the ink, dried. But we obviously have things in life that have brought us the need for this update. And so we were able last year to secure federal funds. It was questionable toward the end whether we were going to get them or not, for all things considered, going on with opportunities for federal grants. but we were able to secure funding to bring in, to do some hiring and potentially some consultants to help us with the CHMP update. A major, part of that and a lot of the work is gonna be, with the community input and developing the community groups that will go along with that update. Of course, our existing plan has corridor aesthetics, landscape management, our emergency response, the vegetation management. Those obviously still will exist, but we have all the new layers of things to think about. Climate change, there's things going on with long-term planning. Caltrans has strategic goals ourselves of safety, equity, climate, prosperity, and action. Part of the update, we're working to make sure this plan aligns with all those as well. So that's why we're investing our energy to do that. So as far as our efforts go, we're working on hiring our staff internally with Caltrans to be able to do this work. And then you'll see if there's a need for consultant services beyond that to update the vision, to engage the stakeholders. There might be time where we'll start with even surveys. I'm not saying we're gonna bring surveys to the next meeting, but it's not in the realm of reality where we start polling everyone and getting input of what in your mind are the priorities? What areas should this plan and this effort focus on? We're starting some literature research now. We're gonna share what that is. Maybe there's things that we need to include in some of that literature research. So that's the hope of that next meeting. And I'm hoping we can dedicate, as much time to that as possible and start lining out the steps. And this group here having a very, big hand in the development of it over the next 3 years, which is our goal and our timeline to have it done. So we're gonna call on everyone's focus, interest in this and the desire for everyone to participate. And when it comes to maybe setting up groups or committees, help with that, we certainly hope to see hands raised and volunteers.
Fabulous news. I would say just administratively that means that this life doesn't stop. I really ask everyone to consider writing a written report from your constituents to hand in before the meeting. So if we had your high points and letters from the outside about things that are going on that would be well aired in our setting, that would help us save as much time as possible for discussing the process around the CHMP and how we can be of most use. So we'll be reserving a majority of the time, as John says. For that, we only have the 2 hours, so.
And we'll, as we get closer to the November 19th, we'll work to, I think having access to the internet, the Wi-Fi and everything work, that'll be a really important element, just so that it can be a dynamic discussion as well.
Yeah.
And all of our efforts to help bring people. So, we'll put out the message of it being important. We're gonna line this room with chairs with the hopeful thought of knowing that people will come.
First, we have to try to convince them that what the CHMP is. That would be the first thing to work on. All right, so you've got staff. There'll be a staff for this effort that's dedicated to the effort.
To this effort,
So there'll be
right.
people to talk to that will be immersed in it
Yeah.
and available to us. That is really good news. The collaborative effort that resulted in the CHMP was remarkable. That's actually always been an amazement to me that we got the level of both depth and breadth of participation in that over time, and it wasn't easy that we did. It was quite something. So I'm looking forward to this for not only its technical input, but also the fact that a lot of people and a lot of energy got brought together in the process of creating that plan that carried us forward in a lot of other ways. And I would also say that simultaneous to this, we are of course working on the land use plan update for Big Sur. And in Big Sur, one of the main fundamental reasons that we need the CHMP to be as robust as it is to reconcile all of the individual and weird provisions of the Big Sur land use plan with Caltrans's mission and requirements, and give us all an idea of how those are going, we can expect those to interact going forward. So it is a little bit of a moving target on 2 sides. It'll be interesting to see how those cross-pollinate, but certainly something to look forward to. And I would ask people to spread the word that this is scene setting in agencies big time, because that's also where we fold in public actions and land management. It, in my view, is a great opportunity to consider the visitation impacts that we have in some of these places and how we might propose those get addressed. I mean, just everything about it, yeah. I'm talking because I love the CHMP, I should stop. Anybody else? In the room, anybody online want to talk about the CHMP? Anything that you would want to highlight that you think would be great to have in it before we even get started, so John can put on his list? Rachel?
Yeah, so long-term invasive species mitigation plan after any landslide repairs are done. I know Caltrans is really great at following up on reseeding and checking for invasive species, but oftentimes we've seen like the slide from the 80s, that hillside is now covered in invasive species. So working along with fellow stakeholders on how long-term is needed, like decades long-term is potentially needed for mitigation from slide. That can be great.
Mitigation and management are pretty hard to disentangle right there. Channel Steve, yeah, Mark?
Yeah, just, comment looking in the rear view mirror. As resident of Highlands, people find out I'm on this body and they'll ask me, well, why is Caltrans taking so long? It's so helpful for me to get information from you, so I can explain it to them. And the complexity and the degree of difficulty, the degree of danger, when you have to pin a hilltop to bedrock so you can work on it while it's moving. Now, when I explain that to people, they realize it's kind of the engineering equivalent of a moonshot. So it takes time. You have to get it right. There's no margin for error. You guys, the work was incredible. I thought just incredible. So thank you for updating us and keeping us posted on this so we can share it with people in the community and they can understand what you're faced with, that, you know, with this open. So I just want to let you know.
And in roundtable, I'll talk a little bit more about the legal side.
Cool.
In the roundtable, I'll talk just briefly a little more about the slide.
Excellent. Anything else anybody wants to add about that? Thank you, John. That's really exciting, and we will just ask again, spread the word that that will be the main focus of this upcoming November meeting, and everybody really does want to hear about that. So we can't drum up enough interest to drive here, make sure everybody has a Zoom link, and maybe we can at least get them present online. Now that Katie's got it whipped into shape here. Okay, so the next item is check-in on the process for identifying potential offsite mitigation options for projects in advance, and that was something that's been discussed ever since we had the conversations around Mud Creek and the mitigation for that. So we asked the Coastal Commission to let us know how that's going and how we can best support that effort. And then John, I think you and your team had some thoughts about that as well. So Eric, did you have anything to add about that at this point?
Not a lot. I could say we're still committed to it and talking with Caltrans about it, but we haven't really started the process, and we're fully committed to getting a lot of community engagement. So I'm not hiding the ball at all. It hasn't started yet, and we're committed to bringing the community along every step of the way, but no updates on my end.
And John, I'll tell you, one of the reasons on the agenda is I just want to make sure we don't forget about it. So that will continue to be. John?
Thank you. I have a couple bullet points of note, but I think I'll just refer to staff to let them operate.
I agree with Eric. In fact, I just got to talk to Peter Allen, mission yesterday. We had a very good discussion. As you know, part of the Mud Creek coastal development permit was to put together a framework for a fee program for access improvements and other kinds of things. And we just had our first conversation yesterday. It's been a very, very busy summer. So we will continue that, and public input is critical.
Very cool. Dan?
I'll weigh in on this one. I think from my perspective, it's important to not equate access with development. If we think of access as access to a wild and lonely coast, as it were, very often the mitigations are antithetical to access rather than serving it. And conservation mitigations, sort of Rachel mentioned, are one thing, but they have to be distinguished from mitigations that include things like EV charging stations or whatnot, that in some sense reduce access rather than expand it.
And I'm still holding out for buses. We got that note from Pansy when we asked why the bus routes couldn't be run to Big Sur anymore, and they told us this time, previously it had been a ridership issue, function of the riders per mile metric that they use for evaluating service, which disadvantages any long route, kind of rural routes, and we're never gonna make it. But this last time they specifically said it because there's no safe place to turn around. And so that seems to me that if you could get somewhere on a bus, that would increase access. If the buses could turn around, perhaps they would be more likely to run, or at least think of some other excuse. We don't know, but it would, that's the barrier that they specifically identified. And so that's not to say that's the answer. It's to you put that out of the box kind of connection thinking into the equation every time we can, because we think that's going to be a real source of energy and creative solution that we need. I mean, addressing issues, all different kinds of issues by that kind of thinking, rather than we have to build a new picnic table.
Just so you know, that was top of mind yesterday when I was talking with Peter, and I said, in our conversation, we
Yeah.
specifically talked about bus turnaround area.
Yeah.
That we talked about, I mean, a list of examples of what we talking about that was brought up, so.
I'm enchanted that that specifically was, and even more excited that that scope was involved in the discussion. I think that was my hope when we first heard about it.
We heard you, and we're trying to.
Anybody in the room have more to say about that? Besides, again, thank you. Anybody online? Looks like there's a hand up.
Yes.
Laura. I think that's Laura, yeah.
Yes.
Hi, it's a little easier to participate from home today, so I'm here. But I heard what you said about the calculus around ridership, and I worry that those numbers might be generated from a set of assumptions that are not the ones that I think make sense. Ridership will be affected by frequency of service, cost of service. If we envision something that is designed to serve tourists, that is going regularly to the places of interest up and down Route 1 for free, you're going to get ridership. And then it's really more about funding. And I think there are also ways to fund that sort of service for tourists. So I don't think we should assume low participation. We have to make sure not to create lower participation by the way it's designed.
Thank you. I wasn't referring to the design of any particular program. I was just saying that that is the metric that AMC cited previously when they removed the bus from the route. John.
I just want to
Oh.
offer, oh, I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead. Yeah,
No, I completely understood that, Martha. I was referring to what they said to you about concerns about ridership, and that I hope that they are analyzing it with a different lens.
Maybe I'd like to offer for a future meeting, not November, but a future meeting, we invite MST, the county's bus, transit provider. Invite them maybe to be a part of a discussion on this. Like it's easy to think of transit as the large capacity motor coach, but it doesn't have to be that. There's lots of other smaller transit options, even micro transit. And that's going on in our district, Central Coast District, and some of our other counties. There's some really innovative micro transit things that they're doing for specifically marketed towards workers who maybe are leaving the restaurants and the hotels and being late. So it's just, there's ways to cater and custom craft service. So maybe a future meeting when we've got capacity to have MSD have a conversation about that.
Is there an interest in that?
Actually, yes, and I would add Stephanie from Point Lobos Foundation for connecting with Arcade as a kind of building on a,
So maybe
Yeah.
we've just cast it as a transit,
Right.
a transit discussion.
At TDM, Transportation Demand Management, that's what we're talking about. We're helping manage demand and move people. And so that'd be a nice.
No abbreviation. We'll lose people if we use abbreviation.
yes.
But yes, that is what it is. Anybody online wanna, and Eric, thank you for making us aware that staying on the table on your end. And again, I didn't mean to narrow it to a discussion of transit. I was trying to broaden the discussion of mitigation, so. Really appreciate that, and the advanced planning that we can really come up with a list of priorities. Anybody else? Not seeing anybody. All right, we're 18. And again, my intent on keeping this on our agenda on old business is just make sure we continue to check in on it. Oftentimes, I think that that's one of the things that Bismack has trouble with is continuity. And so one of the things I thought that Byways could do when it was established was help with the technical part of keeping things on the radar screen and following up on things and just asking those questions in a setting that's perhaps a little more focused on these kinds of issues. So appreciate everybody, particularly Eric, you and your team in participating in that effort. Next item is the Bixby Bridge Emergency Task Force. Is there anybody here from the Assembly Member's office today? I don't see anybody. Is there anybody here from Supervisor Daniels's office? I don't see anybody. I know that I spoke with Supervisor Daniels last week about this, and she was certainly enthusiastic about and committed to following up on our limited success with the emergency railings. I think that the community and all of the law enforcement people agreed and testified at the supervisor's hearing that those emergency measures had been an improvement. Now, we're all aware that they are not a solution entirely, and so we want to continue the discussions of what goes on there. And so, originally, the Assembly Member's office had been convening those meetings. I think they possibly put it down their priority list. Maybe they have a lot of other things going on. Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know, I met with Mauricio on Monday about this for an hour.
Oh, did you? Why don't let us know what you get heard?
Yeah, they're still getting pressure externally from the community around the state just about traffic at Bixby. He's trying to work to figure this out, but did not have an update. And was basically coming to me, and he met with CHP the week prior to try to come up with new answers. I mean, I think I told this group before, I think stationing law enforcement officers there is just a challenge. CHP does a really good job doing it, but they just get stuck there waving people through Bixby, and then another emergency call comes out and they have to leave. So it's like this conundrum of like they can be there when they're there, and a call comes out and they leave. And that's what Mauricio is trying to solve this really complicated issue with. No real major update. We're still working on it between us and CHP trying to help.
And that just chime in, there does seem to be some appetite at least for the idea of eliminating parking altogether there. By, a segment of it, at least.
And I think also that there's certainly in my mind, the opportunity for a more nuanced approach, particularly now that we're getting some data from the traffic enforcement. I think that rather than say no parking, no how, never, we might be able to serve a couple of goals by saying no parking during these periods, which are typically peak periods. That might help to even out the load, which serves all purposes on the road, gets more people there, gets businesses more people and less impact. So all these things, all these small bits that we're doing together seem to me to begin to have some hope. And I'm really can't help highlighting the CATS traffic counter and the new information they put forward. If you haven't looked at the graphics, It makes them hugely more accessible and really informative about what's going on. You really can get a feel for exactly when these peaks are likely to occur. Hopefully that will help with the dispatch of potential law enforcement partners. Hopefully that will help with developing some sorts of solutions that are focused on the high impact time periods. I also wanted to just ask Laura to speak about her experience because I met her at the bridge. I forget, was a holiday weekend or not, on a Saturday doing some work and through the Midcoast Fire Brigade, so another partner in the picture. Laura, were you prepared to talk about that? Wish you walked away. I will just fill in to say that Laura was on scene. It was a Saturday, midday, so moderately heavy traffic. When I came out and had been doing for Midcoast what they had termed was fire education. And so she was in she's a volunteer fire department member. So she was in her full outfit, vest, radio, whole bit, telling people that it was a fire route. It was really important not to block the route. She was able to clear the parked vehicles out just by being there and just by pointing out to them that it is a fire lane, says so right here, that's why you have no parking. And she had remarked me visually, there was nobody parked there at all, and it was afternoon on a Saturday. So I'm not sure if it was a holiday or not, I can't remember. But just the point that that was not a huge, big effort. That was a moderate effort. And it did make a big difference. Dan, she survived, right?
Look, always trying to see the great cloud surrounding any silver lining. What precipitated that when I was driving an emergency vehicle and had to get out twice to tell people to move so we could get to an emergency call.
Dan also serves on them volunteer fire.
So there is a cost to the kind of crowds that is worth recognizing. Can I on this, so and this is acknowledging the things have gotten much better. I guess two questions. One is many jurisdictions in California outsource parking tickets. And to my mind, there's no reason that you couldn't outsource parking tickets there, which would at a certain point create internet noise. And it would create more than when Oscar's there ticketing until the emergency call. And so that's one, seems to me easy, that as well as raising the price of the parking ticket above what's now a fee rather than a penalty. And the other is, and I'm not sure whether this is the time to raise this, Martha, but you've rightly insisted that Bixby people are cranky, and so we focus on Bixby, but it should be seen as a kind of test for improvements elsewhere. And I wanted to say something about at some point about Point Locust. So I don't know if this is so. And
only 11.
It's a small thing, but there every time I also, when I'm not on the fire brigade, I'm a docent at Point Lobos, and literally every time I go, there are people walking in the highway to get to the end. Not occasionally, but every time, because of the nature of the parking. And I don't understand why the simple solution of repairing the trail that has existed is right next to the highway, will get people off and between the highway and the fence rather than between the cars and the highway can't be done. If it's helpful, I can get a brigade of senior citizens and we can fix that trail in a weekend. But to me, that would be a real safety. I mean, people go there assume sooner or later that's where the next fatality is going to be. So that's my.
John, you want to?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to, well, a couple comments. One, I think Labor Day was a good example of agencies working together, CHP, Caltrans, state parks. Being more active in enforcing the no parking on the side of the highway.
Cones.
Cones were set up. That's mine.
That was a world-class collection of cones.
They were. Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, so setting up cones, we already have no parking on the east side, but during peak holiday weekends, peak summer weekends. We see a lot of visitors parking illegally on the east side. And then that takes a lot of time and enforcement from officers to write parking citations. Over that weekend, working together with other agencies, we were able to cone it off, put up a message board, and I think we had almost 100% compliance from the visitor. So that really freed up a lot of staff time, also prevented people from parking illegally and then running across the highway to get to point of so that's a great example of, not fixing the whole issue, but really targeting during those weekends that we know when they are. So we should be proactive and working together on dealing with those. In terms of the trail, there is efforts underway for clearing some of that vegetation that to allow people to walk away from the shoulder of the highway. So that's another exciting project that different groups have been working towards, and we can expect that to be an improvement in the near future.
Are there any barriers to that? Wasn't there a bridge issue at one point or something?
Yeah, there is a culvert that that people would still have to get up and over.
But there is a need for some kind of, it's not just a trail to get them all the way off the road. Is there anything anybody can do to help resolve that issue?
I think it's on a good track and moving forward. Yeah.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment earlier, your comment about perhaps outsourcing ticketing. I have to go by Lovis at least twice a day, every day. And it's great, we've got some things working on the east side, but on the west side, just south of the gate entrance gate, things have gotten so bad, and it's almost every weekend of the year now, not just on holidays. And I've had people walk out on the highway one, put their hand out and stop traffic, so they can back out of their parking spot in that location. Now that's dangerous, and we have to do something. Something has got to be done about that. I don't know if you've seen that or witnessed that, but
I've seen it.
you've seen it. It's just, people shouldn't be doing that. Yeah.
If we see him doing it, we're citing him for it.
Okay.
Thank
But it's just, it's one of those things of like, we're there and then we get compliance. People don't do that when we're basically the police guard. And as soon as we leave, they're stopping the traffic, having a friend get out.
They do that at the other checkpoints as well. So hand up on mine?
Yeah, well, it's just Bruce also commented that he would volunteer to help restore the trail at Point Lobos as well.
Original happy for the trail. Yes.
Question and comment, regarding the trail, was that state park land or Caltrans right away?
It's about where the fence is where the state parks, Caltrans Drive and meets. It's actually not a trail, it's an area of land that's owned by the state. And it's not maintained as a trail because it's actually not a trail. But for purposes like, wildlife management and vegetation management, we're working to help with some of that. We're working with parks and park actually, it's help facilitate some of that conversation. But I also just, it's a good point to also mention that this is yet another example of, the demand exceeding the capacity at some of these, high stopping points in very popular areas. And so there is a long-term vision because you need to have a long-term vision to solve a very large problem like this. And that's where the State Parks Master Plan has been working toward addressing. That's what's led to the Park It initiative, which creates, the entrance opportunities into the park, under a shuttle program. So you have these, cones and things that's short term, that's to deal with the emergency at the moment. But, we do actually have in place a long-term vision. And so, up to our point earlier about kind of a transit sort of shuttle conversation later, we can, I think our group here can help continue to sponsor and support the energy behind that effort to be able to deal. It's not going to solve everything, but it is another opportunity because You know, if your visitor is getting a ticket, well, they're only coming to Monterey maybe once, if they're from out of the state or out of the country, so. They know they're not gonna do it again, but if there are those who are more local and who are making the trip down, maybe that's an opportunity, you know, people who know, maybe we'll be able to take off some of the vehicles that are trying to park and try to walk in with some of these other areas.
Sorry, Lindsay, did you have your hand up before? Are you still there? Not. Maybe?
I didn't, no,
Okay, sorry.
sorry. No, I didn't,
Oh.
but
Yes,
It was Laura and Bruce also has his hand raised.
Laura and Bruce. All right, let's start with Bruce and go to Laura.
I know that at one point during planning a few years ago, there was talk about adding parking on the east side of the highway for Point Lobos. And I wondered whether that was still under consideration.
Yeah, so the Carmel Area State Parks General Plan identifies the area formerly known as Lobos Ranch as the alternative parking site for Point Lobos. That is still being looked at, still being studied. More in the near future, you know, to highlight the Marathon Flats and the shuttle project that we have submitted, a coastal development project through Monterey County. That is definitely more of a near-term goal. And we're in the middle stages of that coastal development permit submittal. So that would provide offsite parking at Marathon Flats and then a shuttle service to Point Lobos. I would also highlight that this last weekend, we continue to hold with Park It public tours through Let's Go Outdoors. We were able to fill up our first morning tour, but afternoon was a little light. So those will be advertised in the Let's Go Outdoor publication and encourage the public to sign up for those. We've probably done about 15 of those events to date and have more scheduled, I believe, in November and then in the spring. And that will give an opportunity for the public to learn more about what the goals are for that project and some of the other future proposals that would include that Lobos Ranch in.
And you have a pretty good place on the website to look at all of the planning, don't you?
You do.
Send people to.
Definitely. If you go to the Park It website, they have updates and visuals and what the plan is, committee members who serve on the Park It subcommittee. So there's a lot of information that I would steer people on that website.
Okay, Laura?
My screen shows my hand is down. I don't have anything to.
Everybody was up in that spot. So
Yeah.
You don't have to. We'll come back to the room then. Yes.
Yeah, just another quick comment regarding the cones on the east side of the highway. Good idea, not good implementation. They need to be in the dirt. Because the way you put them out last time, they were in the bike lane, which caused all the bicyclists to be in the highway, which was a major issue that we've done two times plus one from a friend. The bicyclists like well into the roadway, there's no way to get around them, plus traffic that goes on this side, so if you would just bump them over in the dirt next time, you'd be better.
Practical information, Dan?
I imagine it would be difficult to implement, but it seems to me at Point Lobos allowing you have to pay if you drive in, if you park outside and walk in, it's free. I'm attentive to issues of access, but it would to me make sense if pedestrians who are parking outside instead of inside should pay as well. And you know, that could fund part of the process.
I think John can respond that there's certainly all of this is part of that general plan and the Parker conversation, right?
That is correct. Yes.
When I support.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I certainly remember those conversations going back many years about balancing access and if carrying capacity, that's what I would call it. For the area as well as the park. Yeah, Katie?
We have Bruce's hand up on Zoom.
Yes, I see. We'll get back to you. All right, Bruce?
Hi there, just a follow-up. with regard to Park It, one question is if is there any plan or dedicated or date that is planned to actually implement that? Whether you can tell us what the delay is, why it's not implemented sooner? Yeah, those are my follow-up questions. Oh, and also, is there a consideration from state parks to institute a reservation program for Point Lobos?
Yeah, so the shuttle project is also a shuttle and reservation project. for Point Lobos. So their proposal needed, you would have a reservation to enter Point Lobos in the future. In terms of timelines, we've submitted our coastal development permit to Monterey County, continuing conversations with the county planning staff and coastal commission. It is hard to give a deadline. I know that we have provided information that's being requested of us, Monterey County, for that coastal development project, and we're eager to move it along as quickly as possible. Once hopefully it is approved, then there would need to be construction at Marathon Flats. So there's timelines on that, and then implementing a shuttle system, which has timelines on that. So I think best case scenario, I could see it within 2 years. I think is pretty ambitious, but in terms of future phases to this, possible parking lots over at Lobos Ranch, Ashenta State Park. We are beginning the assessments, feasibility assessments of what that could look like. Obviously working with Caltrans when we get a little further along in that, because there would be highway improvements of a wide range for any public access of that Lobos Ranch area. So we are spending a considerable amount of time and effort in funding to see these projects forward.
And I'm just gonna invite Eric, did you have any thoughts from the coastal commission perspective about implementing any of these projects? Are there still consideration pieces that we need to be aware of from your end?
I was worried you were going to ask me that. This is a project that Braylon is working on. I haven't been too involved
I
in
didn't
it.
see that Braylon was there. I would have picked on him. Hi, Braylon.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm in transit, so just tuning in, but happy to speak on this very briefly. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, the question was about the Point Lobos Park project and kind of where the commission is in terms of the project and anything you all should know regarding that. Sorry, if that's. Sorry, do you mind just clarifying the question?
Sure, if you're trying to do technology at the same time and drive, I don't want you to run into a tree. My question, we were having a discussion of capacity, and addressing the capacity issues at Point Lobos, and where there'd been a question about Park It and the timeline for some kind of shuttle and reservation system. What should we be expecting from that? And John had talked about it from State Park's point of view, and I think to some extent from the Park It point of view, where he has also been active. And I had asked Eric, who probably passed it to you, whether there were process steps or issues from the coastal commission perspective that we should be aware of in going forward with the reservation, Park It, shuttle efforts, I guess I'll call
them. Sure. So the State Parks has submitted their CDP application to the county, and so that the processing of that application is kind of on the county's timeline. In terms of our involvement, obviously we've been working with State Parks on this project for quite some time now, and we're very cognizant of the timing issues here and the need to get a project up and running as soon as possible. And I think we've gotten to the point with State Parks where we're in kind of mutual agreement of what the project should look like generally, with some of the more minor details still to be sorted out, but I think we're in a pretty good place, and we're also kind of looking to the future about this project moving forward now, and what are the longer term improvements that we can do that will further improve the situation. John mentioned parking at Ashenta, and early in the conversation, folks had been talking about trails to keep folks off of the highway if they are going to be parking on the highway. All of that stuff has been part of our conversations and are things that we're certainly interested in exploring more as this project moves forward and into the future.
Thank you, Braylon. Yes.
I just have another quick question regarding the parking initiative. Just a point of clarification, the shuttle part of that program is a for-profit private enterprise, correct?
Park It is a group of local stakeholders, and then state parks, Big Sur Land Trust, and Monterey Regional Parks, in the Point Lobos Foundation. So that's what comprises of the Park It committee. Looking forward to like a shuttle system. More than likely that would be a concession operated shuttle system.
So would that go out to bid?
It would be, yes.
Any transportation company will be able to?
Yeah, we would have an RFP proposal that would go out to any shuttle company that's interested. And then they'd be able to submit a bid.
Okay, that's important.
Thanks. All right.
Can I
Yes.
go back to Bixby just for a second? I want to.
Just because it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I
Sure.
want to bring something up. I went to a Giants game a few months ago, and I parked in a private parking lot. And there was a single individual in there directing the chaos of people getting into these spots. And he was 100% effective. Just standing there, and if he wasn't there, people would just have parked in this gated square, probably anywhere, and there'd be like no uniformity to where they're telling people to go. And in this conversation, I really think that, in my personal opinion, I think 95% of the problems at Bixby can be mitigated, not by a peace officer, but by somebody with some level of training and just people moving and having them continue out of the way. And I mean, I really think if we did an experiment with that it would probably be the best weekend we've seen at Bixby in several years, having people do that.
I would add that when we did our traffic monitoring work for cabs back away, so we spent our 2 hours a week looking at monitoring the behavior there and taking notes. One of the things we did there was interviews. Every half hour, we're supposed to find a willing person and talk to them. And I would say that, in my view, all the people that I talked to wanted to do the right thing, didn't know what it was. And may or may not have had the appropriate language skills to deal with it in English, but I do not remember anyone blowing me off and saying, no, I'm gonna park here even though I know it's a problem. It was like, where am I supposed to park was the question. What am I supposed to do? Which way am I supposed to go? So that would bear out your thoughts and one that I've had for a long time. John, did you have? It was a fly. In your face fly. So I don't know how we would go about doing such a thing. On the county road, it's pretty slow and easy. On the highway, you could probably, safety would have to tell us.
If I can talk to Mauricio, maybe it's something we could try one weekend where we get out there early and try this.
I have always thought that was a really helpful approach to all these choke points that would, before it gets set up, just to keep it from getting set up. And it doesn't require development permit. That's the other half of it. It could be implemented by people, and if we can figure out how to do it, it just has to be funded. And the only place we were looking before up till this point has been peace officers, because the only people we know who could do the work. So I think identifying what the characteristics are of a person who could fulfill that function, besides the peace officer, would be key. Because that, I'm sure there are some, but I don't know what that is. So if you could take that for action.
Yes.
I would be glad to agree with you at every possible juncture that is a very promising experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah. For that. Cool.
I'd be curious to learn the difference between someone doing that just dressed in civilian clothes versus someone who had some sort of an official persona about that. Just simply a fire brigade, uniform, carrying a radio. I think a radio is probably almost as good as a sidearm. Yeah, yeah.
Rachel?
Vision of others and they see the no parking signs everywhere. It's like a medical intervention.
Rachel?
This has been an ongoing discussion, especially since perhaps in the community's efforts to monitor what's happening. And most of the time, we were just collecting information on a clipboard, and it's amazing how much authority someone has just by virtue of carrying a clipboard and even dressed in civilian clothes. I did want to honor that members of the Bixby community, when we've discussed this, have mentioned that they have attempted in civilian clothes to peacefully ask for people to move their vehicles, and that was met with lots of negativity. So I think an experimentation would be great. It was awesome to hear the story about Laura being out there in her fire gear. So I even think something like a high visibility vest could be an experiment, something to try on. I have literally been out there collecting data, and people are asking me like if I'm collecting money for parking. So it's really just looking for somewhere to go. So it would be wonderful to see some different iterations of that, and what works and how people are feeling safe in their authoritative position to direct.
I think there would be the best hope for a peaceful approach would be to not let it get set up. Like, just to start by, when people go in from Bixby, I know having been one of them, we're trying to deal with a situation that is already pretty awful. So people are already stuck and they're frustrated, and I think those responses might be different if you were keeping that from developing. So I would hope, but it would be a fabulous, if we could, I think we've all been stymied by the who, how, what is allowable in the highway, what is allowable in the county road, who might be able to do, what could they do, what is safe for them, what is appropriate kind of behavior, but you can help us figure that one out, that would be huge. And it's kind of a stretch since that's not actually a park, but.
We get called there every weekend on, so.
We all do.
Oh,
Yes, Katie.
Laura's hand up on Zoom.
Laura's hand is up. You went away when I called it before about your fire experience, Laura.
So I was just going to get, because you mentioned it, Martha, and then I both was one of the people in civilian clothes early on trying to educate people about parking and getting a very hostile response. But it is interesting when I go up in my uniform and carry a big radio, suddenly everybody complies. And I'm, and I have the same experience Martha did. I will say, the county maintains this road so that fire trucks can fight fires back in these canyons. And when you park here, we can't get through. Or as Dan described earlier, we had a medical call earlier this week where we actually couldn't get out. And he had to get out of the car and several times and get people to move so we could get through and respond to a medical call. But they do respond when people are there in uniform. I think we've heard from our CHP folks many times. It's amazing how literate people become when they see somebody in uniform. Suddenly they can read. So I do think a component of this is a bigger presence. What Dan said about farming out ticketing potentially, so we can have more. Because as somebody already pointed out, as soon as people go away who are enforcing, people just revert back. So it can be part of a solution if there is a more sustained presence. And even then, I think it has to be looked at along with these other things we've talked about, like reducing car traffic in general by providing more public transportation.
It was easy, somebody would have done it. Great, thank you, and thank you for going out there and doing the work that you do. I really appreciate it. I know everybody who was involved does. If there's no other pressing issues about the task force, I'm going to move on for a chance to go around the table here and get the members to comment and put anything on our radar that needs to come forward, because we very seldom have the opportunity to do that. Oh, you're gonna wanna do your project status update separately, or do you wanna?
No,
How about you combine that with your roundtable? In an efficient manner,
Oh,
not that your project's not the whole point we're here.
so, would like me to start?
You're
So,
gonna start.
The agenda item, it's just highlighting our project update report that I try to provide every Byways and does that, so encourage everyone to have a chance to take a look. Do you have any questions about any of the project timelines or details, feel free to reach out or bring them here at this meeting and let them take a attend. It's a good chance, it's our way in our meeting for me, without going line by line every project, to provide updates on it. So maybe you're wondering, what's the timeline of, you know, the coastlands wall? Maybe you're wondering what's the timeline of the Rocky Creek seawall emergency project. So that's all captured there. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. Continuing on as far as roundtable, feel like I can roll right into that.
Sure.
So this week, I hope everyone saw that we were able to release our estimated opening date of the Region slide by the end of March of next year. Yep, thank you. Yeah, that was that of course is an estimate based on a variety of factors that could, delay. We hope certainly not, but things, that could delay are related to weather, related to more slide activity, related to what we find, the condition of the road when we are able to clear out the debris at road level, but we're working 7 days a week, all daylight hours, when weather permits and safety allows for the workers. So we'll continue to keep that course. We'll continue to provide the weekly updates, which I hope everyone is receiving. It's kind of a new feature, or the infographic form, weekly updates. And so I just want to highlight that, and more to come. Next week we'll have another update as far as some of the activity that's gone on. The last brief thing I was going to mention was it's more of my public service message, if you will. In that very recently in September, we had a Caltrans employee in the Bay Area who was killed while working. He was a construction inspector, and he was killed on the road. It was the middle of the night, about 1:30 in the morning. So whenever that tragedy comes up, it's always a reminder for all of us, Caltrans, those of us in particular who are in the public affairs world, to just take a moment and just reflect on the need for everyone to be careful driving through work zone areas. We have a lot of activity happening here on Highway 1. So we just are calling on everyone's patience as there is construction happening and the cones in the road and traffic control is occurring. There's been a lot of construction and more to come. So just moments like this are tragic and sad, but we just take something out of it. We want to convey the message of please everyone to your friends, family, and others, just to be mindful of we want our workers to go home, we want our contractors to go home safely every night to their families. And so we just want to take that, I want to end with that to encourage everyone to keep that in mind.
Wasn't there an injury at Rocky Creek since our last meeting among the people who were working on the construction project?
There was something that I recall, I don't know the
There
details.
was an evacuation out of Hurricane Point for someone who was injured, and I thought it had been related to the construction.
There was a
The tourists, too. I think it was a
there was a trespasser. That
Oh.
happened. Yeah, there was something, I think maybe that happened at Regents not long ago. With an employee, with that contractor employee, but there was a trespasser that made its way through the work zone, and I think law enforcement was able to assist in that.
My point was simply that it's happening here too. It's not just in the Bay Area. So take that. Thank you. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go around and let people talk, and then we'll come back, because we never get through the opportunity for people to say their piece. So make a note. We'll come back. We'll have comments on all the things that you hear from John on forward at the end of that. We're gonna go to Rick next because he's always last.
So the only thing I have to say is actually regarding Regents, just some feedback. There was some disappointment, of course, that it's March of next year. And I understand that Caltrans is working diligently. We don't question that at all. I would just urge you to keep in mind that it might be easy to look at the off season as not mattering as much, and for the business community, that can be even more critical than the summer season to keep people employed and keep cash flow at a manageable, healthy level. And so don't let off the gas. On the messaging, I was really happy to hear how I only heard this from KSBW, but I was really happy to hear how they were presenting the the news that, Caltrans had estimated a March 26th opening, each time they mentioned it, they added that you can still get to Big Sur from the north. And so that was encouraging as well. Appreciate that. But that, your efforts have, impressed upon them to make sure that they talk about it as well.
And for the record and the recording, you still can get to Big Sur from the south. And there's many wonderful places to stop along the way from the south too.
Good job, John. Anything else? All right, we're gonna go to, I know, let's go from there to C Monterey, who isn't technically on there, but I have Lindsay on the screen, and it's a good time for you to say anything you might want to say.
Always happy to follow Rick, of course. But echoing Rick's excitement, I think about how one, just having a timeline in general and how the news is presenting it, as we know with the How to Highway 1 campaign that we launched. Really the foundation of that being it's no longer a matter of open or closed, it's how you do your Highway 1 road trip, whether it's from the north or from the south, accessing all of that. So with the announcement, we will continue to push that messaging. Like Rick said, even the off season is super important for all of our businesses and our visitors into the Big Sur area who are using Highway 1. So we'll continue to be pushing that messaging out, and we will be working very closely with our partners at Visit California and other tourism partners in SLO County and throughout the region as we get toward a reopening to look at what that messaging looks like, what a possible celebration and activation looks like. I was on the team at Visit California back in 2017 when that reopening took place. And remember all the great international media we were able to generate about that reopening to get that visitation back and up and running in the Highway 1 region. So looking forward to doing something like that. And of course, making sure that we're keeping in line with all the messaging from Caltrans and keeping those updates regular as we hear more. So very, very excited. We will make sure that we make some noise about it. But of course, in all that noise that we make, continuing to push for responsible and safe travel. The How to Highway 1 campaign is more than just about the way that you go, but it's literally how to do it. And so we have a lot of points for safe and responsible travel, where to park, where not to park, where to keep driving because your next great view is just around the corner. So continuing to push that message as we do celebrate the full reopening ahead. And John just noted on what you're saying and making sure that we're messaging safety and mindfulness for our workers out there as they do that. And we'll make sure to update some of our messaging and our travel alerts to correspond with that, because we do want to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe out there, both visitors, residents, and workers. So I think that's all I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions or any other things that people are wondering about C Monterey's response to Highway 1 or how we're looking at the reopening.
Great, thank you. We're gonna go around the table and then come back with a selection of questions.
Perfect.
Because we don't get to do that, that's why. Dawn.
A few updates from state parks. Last BSMAC, I presented with new Stuffing Associates on the Garrapato restroom project that's in design development. After that presentation, we had public meetings, open to the public to hear about what the goal is and to collect feedback from those participants. And those were a great success. Really good ideas, concerns that were brought up. So don't have a lot more details on that. We're still working through the comments that we did receive and working on some of the visual impacts, make sure that those are well documented and available. So that project is moving along. I'm happy to provide more updates in future meetings or at BSMAC as well. So that one is a high priority for me and the Monterey District State Parks. Also the invasive plant subcommittee, that was one of the last conversations that I had with Steve regarding a lot of the successes that State Parks has had over the years managing invasives on state park property, something that he was always, really excited about and, happy to be a part of. So want to continue that that effort, and we'll be getting that subcommittee back online. We've been without meeting for quite a while now, and that is, top priority for me. So those are my updates, and I'll hand it over to Mike if he has anything else.
No other major updates, also taken about the cones at Lobos, and that's what that whole part is. An issue that I'm following closely there and at Bixby, obviously. I'm pretty much constantly engaged in discussions about Lobos parking and violations and working with CHP and Caltrans on those. So we're working on it. We hear you guys. We recognize there are problems at both locations and Soberonis as well. And we want to fix them. So I will get back with Mauricio and that subcommittee, and maybe we'll look by the next time we go out there and try to do an experiment and get there ahead of the group and see if we can keep on the move and document how that works.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. The National Forest have anything to add?
Nothing of too much significance. We did give our electronic sign a shot at Sycamore Canyon on Labor Day weekend. Seemed overall to be fairly successful. I think at some point over the weekend, someone not associated with the National Forest had gone in and changed the language. We're not sure who or how that happened. But where you get I'm not different word. So yeah. But that is something that we want to work with Caltrans, try to make a longer term plan to set up there at busy weekends and maybe other spots along the coast like San Carlos to come up with a longer term plan there. And I think Finn was sent a document there to kind of go through that application process, build a plan. So that's something we want to work on. Another thing we want to discuss with Caltrans is large boulders potentially, or some other projects that we might be working on the South Coast. If we do receive large boulders, we might be looking at areas to store those, not necessarily on a highway turnout, somewhere on property down there, just off the highway. That's something we could have side conversations about later. But yeah, I believe that's all we have at the Forest right now.
Okay. I'm very curious as to what the language was now. I didn't afraid of the Memorial Day weekend to get down there. All right, so, Dan, did you want to?
Just, one thing, I was at a different meeting and heard from the South Coast, about regions, and it's not where I go, so I defer to others, but there was a sense that maybe the opening was putting the perfect in the way of the good, and wondered whether things could be opened in a kind of partial way or something like that before everything, every I was dotted and T was crossed, and urged to do so, which speaks to your concern about the winter. I think was, if the work is done and it's safe to open something, do that, but they, of course, don't.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. All right, Sarah, you have anything that you want to add to the discussion at this moment in time?
Yeah, I actually have two things. I apologize ahead of time if my internet is unstable. It is being not the best today. So sorry if I freeze. My first comment was just for the California Coastal Commission um, on the item C for the offsite mitigation. I think I heard somebody say something about focusing on improvements, and I just wanted to echo that. And I'm looking forward to seeing the framework for what that's like. I'm very curious about it. And yeah, I hope that the focus is on improving what's already here rather than creating more attractions. I think that would be a really good direction for that project. So just looking forward to that. And then I wanted to bring up for CHP, if there's been, I'm wondering if there's been any updates on messaging publicly about the Flock AI safety camera located near Point Sur. Just wondering if there has been any like public notification of that camera. So those are my only two comments.
Mark, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so one of the cameras at Point Sur actually is the state parks camera. So that camera is actually being relocated to Fort Ord. We're in the process of relocating it. Reason being is a private landowner adjacent to the park has decided to install cameras on his property and share them with us. So State Parks is moving our camera away, and we're going to be gaining access to other cameras on a private landowner's property. Does that help answer that, Sarah?
Yeah, so has there been just public notification or messaging about that camera?
The state parks camera, yes, we had 2 public input meetings before they were installed. And we mentioned it at Bismack probably a year ago. The private landowner, I don't think has the same requirements or thresholds to do that. So he's doing his own thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that any other thing else on your mind, Sarah? I mean, I'm sure there is. I don't.
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Cool. And I think Mark had to go to a fundraiser. We are absent a Big Sur proper representative, sadly. And I would just say from an outsider's point of view that 2 things. One of them is I have always been doing this since the get-go. The new presentation of the CAPS data is really going to help people get engaged with it. I want to ask all of the partners here to make the effort to at least review what is now available from the Community Association of Big Sur with respect to minute by minute traffic information. Because I think that all of us can make use of that information for our various considerations in so many ways that we haven't even thought of because it hasn't been there yet. Really would personally be hugely interested to know if there's a correlation, what the correlation is between the peak hours of traffic and the heaviest hours that the businesses experience. I mean, I think as Marika and I were saying earlier, we all have our senses of what that's like, but we don't have, now we have data. So it'd be really great to know how that works. With respect to issues and concerns where we have problems at the choke points, how does that relate, your work there, relate to the information we're receiving about what standard traffic patterns are? So, and I'm sure that from C Monterey's point of view, the information about exactly when people are coming and going from the area has got to be of interest and import. And so I just want to highlight all the ways that that could be of use to any of the planning that anyone goes on about. I'm not even mentioning Caltrans because we all know about that stuff already. And we have been working really hard to access any existing information about traffic counts that Caltrans may be able to share with us to pair with this every 15-minute snapshot, 24/7, both directions, information that we now have at El Paso. Because the more we can define the whole picture, the better we're going to be able to plan for what comes in the future. So my pitch for using the information that CABS has been so diligent in working to get for us. So everybody, look at, if you've done anything else, just go and look and see what's available and see how it might be of use to you, because I hate to have it there and not be used. The only other complaint I got, I already relayed separately and privately, but I'm gonna do it publicly as well so people will know I didn't forget, which is I had two separate residents of the mid-coast area come to me, and actually one's from Big Sur, and say, what is the speed limit at Rocky Creek right now? And that has to do with signage. It has to do with a flashing sign that flashes at 25 coming towards the north, and a lack of information within around the work zone going to the south. So I would just highlight that perhaps a clarification of what is expected of people in that location might be a good thing, since I've heard that now twice, and I went and looked at it and couldn't answer the question myself. That's what I've got. I'm gonna ask if Patty and Rachel want to tell us anything about cabs that they think we should know, because they've been kind enough to come. Anything you'd like to share?
What is it that we should? Well, right now, we're in the process of refreshing our website, so that has been really interesting, because it's like rebuilding a whole new website. So, and it does include the traffic counter. We get those reports downloaded at the end of each month, and then we send out the data, the raw data in visuals, middle of the following month. So, agree with you, Martha, it's invaluable information for all of us, whether it's the travel public, agencies, businesses, to really start tracking. And of course, with regions closing the highway, it's only giving us the in and out. So as soon as the highway opens, I want to circle back to John and find out how we can get the information on the south coast. That there is a traffic counter that Caltrans has on the south coast. CABS does have traffic counters on Nacimiento Ferguson and some of the South Coast Ridge roads. So we're going to start incorporating that information on our website. What else do we? I mean, it's the whole body. But those are kind of the highlights right now. We really appreciate being involved in the Byways organization. And with the coastal management highway plan being updated, if I were to say anything of a real holistic approach, including the Big Sur land use plan, really looking at that. One thing I would like to see on the visuals for the historic railings is the railing today, the historic railing that exists today on that visual graph. So we actually have what is today and that 511H, the difference.
I'm just witnessing and thank you for giving CABS the floor for a moment. I'm witnessing so many conversations today surrounding our popular highway hotspots, whether that's US Forest Service property, state parks, Caltrans right of way. What ends up happening in these congested hotspots is the issue pushes into the highway and then it becomes a health and safety issue. So it's been available forever. Thank you to the Big Sur Byways org and to Marcus Foster for providing me a hard copy. Got my hands on the traffic study and transportation report that was provided by Monterey County in the late 70s. Super fascinating information. And the work that CABS is doing with the traffic counter right now is so that we can all kind of better understand what is happening on Highway 1, how many visitors are coming through. The question is always, has anyone ever defined carrying capacity? And so I just want to encourage Caltrans, if we're going for this CHMP, if part of the CHMP has like a concerted effort and a focus on these hotspots on the highway, it would very much behoove Caltrans to do a traffic study at these various hotspots so that we have a baseline to go off of decades in the future and we know what kind of is happening there on an activity level and we can compare and know how to adjust moving forward. So more to come in November. That's just what's going on in my head. I think a lot of these issues can be solved and monitored if we have more than just the one traffic counter and potentially all of us working together to solve these problems.
Super, and I would just say, anybody who has any access to traffic information in their work or through any of the things that they're already doing, let's try to bring those together. Let's try to consolidate all that information so we can get a whole picture. Mike?
The private landowner, he has both ways at point search. So if we care about El Paso traffic to see.
We do.
If it's hitting at point search still, and compare those numbers. I can get those to you.
That, if that is available, I would certainly love to see that, and I think CAPS would probably help us display it in conjunction with the other data, and we can always put links to any of this. We can ask the county to put it on the Byways website as well. So that's really super. John?
Related to the work that slowed traffic down crossing the Garapata Bridge, we of course put up a microwave speed detection system to track to see if our measures are slowing people down. Mostly they are, some cases they're not, but we do get traffic counts from that as well. So that was something, just as comparison, so that new station there does a traffic counts too.
Let's get them. Let's get that information, and, Patty and Rachel, would you be the place to send all that, or should we just try to assemble it separately?
Well, we have a really amazing data analyst, so if you send it to us, then we could potentially have that person compile it, so we have more than just the Highway 1 dashboard at El Paso Creek. Something that we could potentially discuss, that would be more workload than what we're currently paying him for, so we would need to kind of discuss what that looks like too.
I think that you could also, go ahead and send it to Katie. We can stick it on the website, the county website, in whatever form it comes, and then people can access it for their own purposes, which is what we're trying to do all along. Fabulous. All right, so we had everybody weigh in, and now we need to know if there's any comments, questions, further discussion of anything, starting with John's project report and going the rest of the agenda. Anybody have anything we missed? Anything they want to ask? Anybody? Yes, Harris.
If we have, looks like a couple minutes, I wanted to highlight two upcoming projects that I have. That
Sure.
will have impacts in this area. One is the Rocky Creek electrochemical extraction project that's expected to start late, probably early winter, spring-ish next year. That project is part of the reason why there's still a covered up traffic signal at Rocky Creek Bridge. So when the project starts, similar to the Garapata Creek ECE projects, there will be one-way traffic control on Rocky Creek Bridge, similar to what they'll be utilizing the same traffic signals they use for the emergency work. And that'll be ongoing, like for a while, like the other ECE project. It's a longer process to get that structure rehabilitation work to.
I think we've seen El Paso, Granite Canyon, Garapata so far.
Yeah, it'll be overnight closure as well.
There's probably gonna be very limited overnight closures just to set up K-rail and other ends, but the work will progress under that one lane closure, and then it's just a long process to complete that rehabilitation work. The other one quickly that I wanted to say was I have a minor A project to rehabilitate a couple drainage culverts. Most of them are closer to Big Creek Bridge. There's total of 4 locations. Those will probably have some overnight closures for that work. One location is in Carmel Highlands at what's called 70.83. It's right north of Allen Road. And so that work is expected to begin coming up this next summer of 2026.
Hey, thank you. I think any heads up is always appreciated. Comments, suggestions, group sing along. Sarah.
I had and for folks who haven't met me, I'm Sarah Weichel. I'm the new principal planner with the long range planning team at the County of Monterey. So it's nice to meet everybody. I'm gonna be helping with the Big Sur land use plan update and working with Katie to help staff as many of these meetings as possible. I did want to share that this isn't necessarily byways related per se, but it's a kind of a code update. The ADU ordinance is scheduled to go to the Coastal Commission on October 10th. For a certification for them, and then we'll go back to the Board of Supervisors, but we've been working pretty diligently on that and got, it's on the website, but the agenda packet's not yet available. If this group is interested, I can work with Katie to have that link sent out if folks are interested in that. But I just want to make sure that folks know about that, as that's a big milestone for us on the planning team.
Yeah, coming for the bridges, it's kind of what railings are to you is the power line under the Bixby Bridge that you see kind of like in a, and is there any reason it can't be hidden like at the bottom of the bridge or something? It's very unsightly.
PG&E doesn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Basically, we can't get it to Bismack.
PG, I say.
Is it power or is it telecom? I'm not sure. If it's telecom, who uses it? But there is a wire that goes kind of, and
There's one had, I believe, a similar situation at Rock.
yeah, and it, we'll look into it. Thanks. That'd make my day.
Well, anybody else? I just gotta say thanks to everybody for making time to come to yet another meeting and, I guess the final question I will ask, is there any burning issue that people would specifically like for me to mention at the BSBAC that's coming up? I generally try to report briefly about what we're talking about here at the meeting, and see if there's any direction to take from the BSBAC about things we should follow up on. But is there anything we want to take back to them that I might forget? If it's not on your mind, you can always send me a note. Because we do get a few minutes to talk. It's at the very end, so everybody's bored, so it has to be short. But just keep that in mind. And that being the case, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn this meeting 5 minutes early by that clock, so I'll take it.
Thank you.
With thanks to everyone and
Yeah.
during the notice, once again, and if you take a picture of it or feel free.
Thank you, everyone.
In honor and with memory of Steve. Go murder some jublata brats. I did. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Katie and Sarah, particularly Katie, for making the technology work.
Thanks, Mark.